What's up, everybody? Scorch the Fears, episode 48. We have the great Jamil Damji. I'm a little bit sick. You guys might hear that in my voice, but it's okay. I've been trying to get this guy on, and I love him so much. I could definitely wanted him to be here, and I'm so excited. So
I apologize that we've had to reschedule it a couple of times, Jonah, but thank you for your patience with me. You know, I got a lot of love for you, so I'm happy to be here, man. I'm also sorry you're sick. What, you got, COVID?
It might be COVID. I don't really know yet. It's likely. Jacob Simpson got like symptoms of COVID, and I was staying with him. So it's very likely. I just got it tested, but we'll see the results. It's possible. I'm not doing too bad, though. I thought it would be worse if it was COVID.
Well, you know, there's versions of it, but
yeah.
Ain't nothing to be scared about because this is Scorch the Fears and ain't no COVID gonna scare you.
Dude, welcome to Scorch the Fears. I'm super happy. Guys, I don't know who doesn't know Jamil Damji on here, but just in case, Jamil, can you give me like a 30-second intro into what you do and who you are and Keegley and all that?
Absolutely. So I'm Jamil Damji, guys. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the co-founder of Keegley, the nation's largest wholesale operation. We are franchised in 130 markets, and I am also the co-founder of Astro Flipping, which is our mentorship where we teach people how to do what we do at Keegley. And then in addition to that, I'm on a television show with my best friend and sister and his hot wife, Triple Digit Flip on A&E. I'm also the subject matter expert for wholesaling at Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets once upon a time didn't like wholesalers, but all of a sudden now they do because of me. So that's just me in a nutshell, guys. I'm a wholesaler. I am. If there was a wholesaler in the dictionary, my face should be right beside it.
100%, guys. This is like the wholesaler of the wholesalers. My original mentor. 100%. Like, this guy knows I wouldn't be anywhere without him. He got me kick-started off in wholesaling, which got me kick-started off in real estate and got me kick-started off in everything. So I'll ask my first question real quick that I like asking at the beginning. So, Jamil, when you were starting in real estate, just like before you did your first deal or right before you did your first deal, what were the fears that were holding you back? Because like you're doing all this crazy stuff now, and it's like even me looking at like you at the mountaintop is like, man, that's going to take a while to get there. But I want to roll back the clock a little bit and see like what were you dealing with when you were starting? Like what were some of the fears you had to struggle with?
So that's an interesting question because when I first got started in real estate, I wasn't scared of entrepreneurship. I wasn't scared of real estate at all. In fact, I was already in an entrepreneurial pursuit and it wasn't going very well, right? We were running a media company where we were selling websites to businesses back in 2002, literally cold calling people out of the yellow pages, convincing them that this thing called the internet was going to take off and they should stop advertising in the yellow pages and start building 5 or 6 page websites to promote themselves and start doing some search engine optimization because we believed that's where the future of business was going to go. Guess we were right, but that was a really tough sell back then. And the hardest part too for me was we would sell these websites for $600, but we didn't know our business well. And so every one of these websites actually cost us $700 to make. So I was so good at my job that I put us out of business. Now, the thing is I was in proximity to my business partner, whose father was a real estate investor at the time. They were buying old houses in Calgary, Alberta, and knocking them down and building these luxury duplexes. And I overheard a conversation they were having where they were literally celebrating $160,000 windfall. And I'm just shocked at this kind of money, right? Because I come from the hood, man. For me, $160,000, it's like, that's like what the president makes. You know what I mean?
Where did you grow up, Jamil? Where did you grow up real quick? Sorry to interrupt.
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
I have no idea where that is.
You shouldn't. Nobody should know where it is. It's a little mountain town in southern Alberta, province of Canada. Beautiful city. I mean, I absolutely adore Calgary. My daughter still lives there, and I've got a lot of family and friends in Calgary, Alberta. Wonderful place to grow up. But I, didn't grow up in the best neighborhood there, right? I grew up around some pretty rough people. I grew up in a rough neighborhood around rough situations. And so for me, just growing up, I was around lack. I was around scarcity. And so hearing people talk about money and dollars that high was exciting. So it's funny that you ask about fear, because for me, I didn't have the same kind of fears as I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, because for the most part, most people, they're at our age, or at my age, the people that come into astro flipping now, right? These are like middle-aged people. These are people in their 30s, 40s, 50s joining. They're well past the craziness of young adulthood in a really impoverished neighborhood. So for me, my fears were violence. My fears were death. I was scared I was going to get shot, because I was around people getting shot. And so when I had an opportunity to take action in real estate and to like go off and bird dog to try to get a deal, that didn't scare me, because the people on the end of the phone didn't have guns. Right. They were just people. And so, that, and when I was like, I would literally, I got my first deal walking my dog, calling a for rent sign. And I had no fear. I had no fear doing that deal at all. I just understood that I had to do something to make something happen. I would say that the second time, because for those of you that don't know my story, I bootstrapped a wholesale business with no knowledge, no mentorship, no training, nobody to hold my hand through it. And I built it into $1 million operation. And then in 2008, when the market crashed, I lost everything. I went negative millions, right? And so really, I didn't have fears my first time. My second time around, I was frightened. My second time around, when I got back into real estate again, I was scared, because now I had PTSD. Now I had, oh my God, real estate's scary. Real estate, you can make millions and you could lose more millions. You can do really well, or you can go to hell. Like, so for me, my second go around, that was frightening, because I was like, I now understood what it meant to get burned. I had the proverbial cookie jar, and then I dropped it and it shattered.
Yeah. So tell me real quick, like, just because, I was in 8th grade when the last recession happened. So I'm curious, like, from your perspective, because I can't even imagine going from $1 million wholesale business. I think you
$12 million.
$12 million. Which
$12 million bucks, all gone.
That's insane. Like, that's like unfathomable to me, in the sense of like, I don't even know, like, what was going through your head? Like, how were you able to manage that at all? Were you just tripping every single day? Like, as in, like, you were worrying about it every single day? Like, well, go a little bit more into like what was happening.
I had a whole slew of emotions. I didn't handle it well. I became an alcoholic. I was addicted to pain pills because I was in a debilitating car crash. I almost lost my life in this car crash. I broke my neck. I was just going through it, man. Like I was so low at that time in my life that I contemplated taking my life. I don't talk about this a lot, but it was definitely on the table. So
yeah,
I didn't handle it well. And it was tough. I had to really push through a lot to get past that. It was so many people got hurt, it wasn't just me who got knocked off the top, right? Like there were people, family, friends, and people that had done deals with me, and everybody was losing everything. Not only that, but my mom and dad, like I had them co-sign construction loans, and so they took my parents' house. My childhood home was taken from us. My sister and I bought my mom and dad a house on a lake. They took that away. They took my home away. They took our cars away. Like everything was gone. And it's just the amount of responsibility that you feel when you put people in a bad spot, when business goes wrong, and you tank everyone around you. You tank yourself, and you tank your friends, and you tank your family, and everybody's for the worse. Right. That was hard, man. And but it absolutely taught me so much, right? It's why I do business the way I do today. It's why I'm so risk averse, why I'm so pure when it comes to wholesaling and staying true to my model and not getting over leveraged. And I talk to you about this all the time, right? My best friend Pace Morby, he's the king of leveraging leverage, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm so scared of leverage now. I'm so scared of notes. I'm so scared of payments. Like dude, my life is set up in such a way that everything could go to hell tomorrow. I could drive Uber and everything would be fine. I wouldn't even need to because I got millions in the bank. I don't have a mortgage on my house. I own all my vehicles. Like I don't do payments. I don't do payments
Interesting.
because I'm just the way I see life now is I want to set myself for peace of mind. And I've seen what happens when things go wrong. I've seen what happens when the market tanks. I've seen what happens when you don't have enough cash flow coming in to debt service.
Right.
And I've seen how the banks treat you when they want their property back. And so
Right.
I was not playing, and I'm not playing this time, which is why I stay strapped with cash.
I understand like having to go through all of that. Like, why even do it? Like you've got an even bigger wholesale company the second time around. Like what's even the point for you? Like I totally get it. Like it doesn't, especially if you go through such like a hell-like experience. Right. Like I've had some hell like experiences in my life. Like when I came back from the Peace Corps, I was having like a lot of mental health issues. And like how I dealt with that was not good either. I wasn't an alcoholic or anything, but like I was definitely struggling just like for like 8 months or 9 months. It was just like video games. So what's the advice you give to someone to get out of hell? Like emotionally at least. Like I don't know if there is an answer to that, but you eventually got out of it. So
Yeah, I did. And, I would have gotten out of it a lot sooner had I gotten into personal development sooner, I think.
mhm.
So I really just floated around for a while. If you don't know my story, after losing everything, I basically gave up on real estate for a little while. And I said, you know what? I can't do this. I need to go and try a creative pursuit. So I left Canada and I moved to Los Angeles to become a stand-up comedian because I've always been a funny guy. I've always
You're
been able to
hilarious.
make people laugh. Even in deep dark times, I still found the humor in how crazy stuff got. And
Mhm.
so because I was able to take pain and laugh at it, because I was able to take my life situation and laugh at it, and because even though I was struggling and hurting inside and I wasn't coping well, I still could find humor in such dark things, right? And so, I floated through life for a few years as a comedian, and it was what it is. It's helped me these days with my ads, and it's helped me become a
Right.
good coach and a great communicator with people because I can disarm anybody with a joke, right? The fact is, though, I think if I had gotten into personal development sooner, if I had learned how to really harness the power of broke, the power of rock bottom, because there's so much
Mm.
power in rock bottom. I look at life like an elastic band, okay? And if you get pulled down to the bottom, rock bottom, okay, there's inertia in rock bottom. There's potential energy in rock bottom. There
Right.
is an opportunity for a reversal of momentum at rock bottom. But you don't
Mm.
learn that until you become involved in your growth, until you become involved in your evolution. And for me, unfortunately, it took me longer. I was still struggling with alcoholism. I was still struggling with pain pill addiction. I was still struggling with these like nonsense situations in my life. And, I got back into real estate a little bit, like kind of dipped my toe in here, doing some wholesale deals in LA, then finally moving to Phoenix. And then one day, I had met my wife, Nat, we were engaged at the time. And I was like, I'm going to start a family. And Natalie had a child, and I had a child from a previous relationship. So I had children to take care of. I had to pay my parents back for losing their home. I had penance. I had things I had to take care of, right? And
Mm.
finally, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, Jamil, you're not going to get this. You're not going to make this happen as a comedian in LA. You're not even that good, right? But
Right.
you have a talent at real estate. I mean, you're that good at real estate. Like for whatever reason, you're a drunk and you can still find deals. Like
Right.
you're at like quarter capacity and you still attract opportunity. You're so damn good at this. You can make so much money barely alive. Like
Right.
what happens when you wake up? And so that's what happened.
Yeah.
I left LA, I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and I got a book. The first book in personal development I picked up was called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
I was
And it
going to
changed.
ask you if it's okay if I interrupt you. Sorry, Jamil, but
Yeah.
you might literally be saying this right now. But was it the book that got you started in self development? I consider you damn near the Buddha now. Like at like where you're at. Like
I'm still
you're
working.
killing it.
But yeah, I mean, that book was the start. It was a jump off for me for sure. You know, she really breaks it down in a very simple, easy to digest way, right? She basically amalgamated all of the different personal development books that she had read and different, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich and some Tony Robbins stuff and some other people that she was interested in found insightful. And she put all the stuff together in this book. And one of the things that she talked about in there was meditating, right? Like meditation and like how you can create a reality in your mind, and then and how thoughts are energy, and how that energy can become physical matter, because all energy, everything is energy, right? Even things we think are solid are just energy. And so if you have enough intention in your thought, and if you have enough power behind your thought, a thought can materialize. It can actually become a thing. And so I found that extremely powerful. And I also thought, wow, this is crazy. Like, is this like sorcery? Is this like okay? Is it
Right.
am I if I'm a believer, is this going to be countering that? Like, what am I tapping into the occult here? Like, what's happening here? What is thoughts become things? What is this?
Right.
But at the time, I'm also hurting. I wake up every day with a hangover. And I'm like, I'm not, whatever I'm doing right now isn't working. Yeah, I got some money in the bank, but this life sucks.
Right.
So one of her pieces of advice was to begin a practice of meditation and to do it consistently. And so I woke up my first day with a hangover, and I said, you know what? I don't think this is the ideal way to meditate, but I'm going to do it with a hangover, because I said I would. I told myself I was going to do this. I'm going to do this thing.
Better than none.
Yeah, 100%. And you want to know what's interesting is that when I sat down and I started, and it was like, meditate on what's your ultimate goal. And it's so funny that what my goal was, and it was to become the most successful wholesaler on planet Earth.
Damn.
And that's what I put out. I was my mantra, bro. Like, I put this mantra in my consciousness, and I solidified it. And then you know what ended up happening? I started to develop as a man. I started to become a different person. The alcohol started to fall away. The pain pills started to fall away. The aggressive attitude started to fall away. The need for attention and like my ego gratification started to dull a little bit. I'm still an attention hoe, but that's whatever. Like there's pieces of, and I'm still working on myself, right? I'm still constantly evolving. I'm still constantly checking myself. I'm still constantly peeling back the curtain and making sure that I'm staying true to my essence, because I understand how important that is. But this journey of self-development was just an incredible thing for me. And I that's the piece I wish I had done sooner, but everything is in its time. I needed that time in LA to lick my wounds. I needed that time to develop the skills of humor so that I could attract more students to this community, right? And so there were stops that I had to take along the way that now, looking back in hindsight, I can see that those stops were necessary. But, all in God's time is what I think.
100%. I mean, I was literally about to ask you that because because I've seen so many people go through it now. Like, people even ask me for help, and like, this, like, I help people out with like getting first deals and all of that stuff. Obviously not at your level, but like, I still see this, and I feel like there's two things that like really make somebody successful. It's desperation and aspiration. I don't know. I feel like everyone who's super successful has both, to be honest. Like, with my story, I had desperation because I was like, I literally have nothing else to do with my life. If I don't make this work, I'm going to be an insurance salesman or something. Like, I have no idea. Right. And then there was also aspiration of like, I know I'm meant to do more. So my question is, do you think you'd be where you are, the best wholesaler in the entire world, the biggest wholesaler in the entire world, without going through that hell like
No.
that you were going through?
No, like I said, I think rock bottom has a massive amount of potential energy in it. And so I think that, when you go the opposite direction, right? you can reach the moon. You can absolutely just take off and orbit, you know, like this is you have. And this is the piece, right? Is that the piece of self-development that I learned is that we really can do whatever we want.
True.
You can, as a human being, you are so limitless. But this is what society doesn't want you to know. They don't want you to know that you have a divine capacity within you to create a reality. Nobody wants you to know that. Nobody wants you to understand how flippin' powerful you are. Nobody wants you to know that. You want to know why? Because then you'll quit your job. And if you quit your job, that you're going to hurt the business owner. If you have higher aspirations, you're not going to be a cog in the wheel. And you know, the masters of the universe depend on broken dreams.
That's a crazy way to think of it. That's pretty wild. Yeah, like I feel like I've noticed that. Like I feel like that definitely makes sense to me in a lot of ways. Like obviously I want my employees to be able to go to like the moon, and I give them all the resources they want. If they wanted to leave, I would bless them and do it. But like I won't lie that there's a part of me that's like, man, if everybody left and tried to start the company, then I'd be screwed, right? So I definitely get that in the sense of that it is hard. Like it is hard that society, it's like you're conditioned from the beginning, basically from like kindergarten on, right? Like I've read, I think the entire school system is based on factory workers. I think I read that somewhere with like the bells and the hours. So this is a question that I'm curious if anyone's asked you, because this is one that has popped into my head. And like, because I don't know who was like your mentor, Jamil. Like, did you have any mentors? Like when, like, I'm curious.
So yes, you know, I think for my attitude mentally, definitely my mom. You know, my mother was and is an incredibly impactful person in my life. She was the person who taught me not to stop working, you know, to always go, and to be positive. You know, my mom's a positive woman. She's like, she always likes to look on the bright side. She always wants to find a silver lining. And that was a piece of her that I still embody today. So she's definitely been a role model. My sister, you know, my best friend, and also just somebody that has always had my back. She was a role model for me because, you know, that taught me about unity. It taught me about family. And it taught me about how it's important to be loyal to some things, to some people. You know, and you can't, sometimes in life, you don't get to be loyal to everything and everybody, sometimes not even yourself. But there's sometimes there's people like my sister, I would lay down in traffic for her, you know? And so it taught me that. These things taught me. And then, you know, I've said this before, but Tupac, for real, like I was so alone, man. I was so alone. I would just sit there alone listening to old Pac records, and everything he had to say was just hitting me in my soul. It was stirring in me motion. It was making me move. It was pushing me. It was getting me motivated. It was taking me out. And a lot of the things, oddly enough, that you find in that book, You Are a Badass, was stuff he was rapping about in his records. So like this man was the personal development, like inspiration for people in the gutter.
Right.
You know, he was the Tony Robbins of the drug dealers and the people stuck in mud. You know, and so it's like I that was Pac for me. You know, he was my Tony Robbins. He was the guy who pushed me out of my bed and off my ass to move and make life happen.
Did you I'm just curious, do you think you connected with him more because like you said, you came from like the ghetto, like a neighborhood where people are getting shot and stuff? Like I'm just curious because
for sure, because when the things he would talk about, I seen.
Right.
I seen friends die. I had friends get shot and killed and murdered. You know, this was happening in my world. People were getting robbed. You know, this, like, people were getting locked up for life. Like, this was happening. This wasn't just like, you know, read about in the newspaper. This was like my buddy. Right. You know, and so this is, of course, I resonated because I was at that level. I was at that level of consciousness. I was at that level of life. Now, do I still relate? Not a lot. I have to be honest. Like I can't I still have to really limit how much Tupac I listen to these days because I'm not vibing at that level of consciousness anymore. I'm different. I've grown. I have evolved. That man was 25 years old when he said that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a 43-year-old man with gray hair and 2 kids. So I'm like, I'm not thug life anymore, but I'll tell you what, right? There's a piece of me that'll always be.
So I like it. So it's interesting in the sense of, so mentor wise, your mom, like emotionally and keeping it together, it was really just family. And then Tupac got you through it. I'm just curious. It sounds like, did you just bootstrap everything wholesale wise? Like, how did you even tell the story real quick? I know this story, but how'd you even like learn about real estate, and how did you like started learning what you know now?
Well, it was funny, right? Because nobody taught me anything. I thought I invented wholesaling. I truly did. And I didn't even realize it was a thing until I came to the United States. In Canada, it's like, it's not even called a thing. In Canada, the process of what I did is called a skip transfer. Like they didn't even have a name for it. They don't even have a category for it. It's just it's a legal process called a skip transfer. That's it.
Interesting.
And so, when I'm in Canada doing this thing, how did I come across it? Or how did I figure it out? Well, as I was sitting there listening to my business partner and his father celebrate a $160,000 win, I asked, how can I help? How can I get involved? And they weren't trying to tell me. They weren't giving me any opportunity. They weren't telling me nothing. But then they said, the one thing we do need is we need more houses. We need more houses to tear down.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, maybe I could do that. Like, yeah, if you can find a house that has a 50 by 120 foot zoned R2 lot in the inner city of Calgary, somewhere in one of these neighborhoods, we'll buy it and we'll pay you like a finder's fee, or we'll figure out how to pay you. And I'm like, ooh, there's a thing.
Right.
So the next day I'm walking my dog and I see a for rent by owner sign and I call it. And funny enough, I tried to rent that house like 2 months earlier, but it was $200 a month out of my budget. That's where I was in life. Like that $200 a month made my living decision. And so this house was still for rent. So I called a lady and I asked if she'd be interested in selling it instead of renting it. And she said, yes. So I asked how much. She said $350,000. Now, what most people would have done is they would have gone and told their business partner and his dad that I can get this house for $350,000. And they probably would have paid me $2,000 as a finder's fee and sent me along my way.
Right.
But what I did instead was I asked, how much would you pay for this? And they said $400 all day.
Love it.
So now I have a $50,000 problem to solve. How do I buy this house for $350,000 and sell it for $400,000? I don't know how to do it.
Right.
So I do what I was already doing. God put me in a position to cold call people out of the yellow pages every day. So I went to the letter L.
What year was this? I'm just curious.
2002.
Okay, so yeah, yellow pages. Got it.
I go back to the yellow pages and I go to the L section. I start looking up lawyers. I get through all the way to ST. Steed. David Steed was the guy's name. He was fresh out of law school, didn't even have somebody answering his phones.
Right.
And he told me exactly what I needed to do. Told him what the problem was. I said, I can get this house for $350,000. I have a buyer for it for $400,000, but I don't know how to do this and I don't have any money.